Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Aurora. This is my little dog, Cheeky. She is already in position here today, totally ready to work hard. It's Cheeky Boss. This is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Today is October 10th already. And on today's presentation, this is part of the webinar series called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, where I present information that is in conjunction with a series of recorded online lessons. Let me just fix my little lamp over here. There we go. I knew it needed one more click. Today's presentation is lesson 17. It actually is not part of the recorded series, and it is a practical application of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna concept. So this will cover both levels 1 and 2, even though I would consider this to be more of an advanced presentation, because I realized that I was getting sometimes I get into very high levels of abstraction, and I realize it's necessary to apply, talk about practical applications. So I say this Flying Rainbow Lasagna. It's very similar to like a paintbrush. If I show you this little paintbrush I have over here. And if I were an art teacher, I would say, hey, this is a paintbrush. These are the bristles of the paintbrush, and this is where you hold it with your hand. You can hold it in various different ways, and you put the paint on here, and you smear it around like this. And I'll show you examples of my work. P.S. Here's an example of my work. Before, when I did the intro, I was standing in front of the painting, but the painting that I have is like in front of the computer there, so I cannot turn it around easily. But yeah, I always include my Etsy links if you enjoy my my custom design stuff. I mean, I'm not the type of art teacher that would ever say, you must all use your paintbrushes in order to do exactly what I do. That's not it, because you know what? There's already one of me. There's already one Aurora in this world, and it is not necessary to just replicate and have another exact identical example of me and my work. That's the whole point. It's a stronger system. The entire time field, the entire series of possibilities and probabilities through which consciousness flows is a stronger system when there are more variables or more nodes for creativity. Just like if we had a band, it would be a stronger band if we didn't just have one songwriter. If the songwriter gets a cold on that day, then it's like, oh great, well, we can't have any new songs until the songwriter finally gets to be feeling better. Like that's not an effective system. So the strongest system is when everybody can write and innovate new stuff. And that's the idea of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So this is lesson 17 of a 20-part class. And next week I am going to reconverge with the prepared lessons, which is the dreaded lesson 18, which is basically all about the genetic degradation, the planetary invasion, the consciousness invasion. So I feel like this information, I don't have a recorded lesson for it, but it's very necessary to talk about this, not for me to remind myself, not to get too bogged down in the abstraction when I say that, like, I'm in abstraction. This is why I get bogged down in abstraction, because I'm very comfortable in that realm. When I say abstraction, I'm talking about non-anthropomorphic, non-representational, a world of colors and shapes and vibrations and polygons and numbers without the human system of interpretation being applied to those basic, building blocks of reality. And that's where I'm from. That's where I, as consciousness, am coming from. So being here on the anthropomorphic realm is very challenging. Dealing with human nature is challenging, but not as challenging as dealing with human politics, which to me is very boring and very time wasting. Like, why not just be forthright and do what you need to do instead of doing all these machinations to try to manipulate humanity through its viewpoint and through its emotions. So that's not my way of doing things. So as I go further with this presentation, I think you'll understand, but I just want to keep on reminding everyone. So, you know, I'm a galactic abstraction, I'm a walk-in, I'm here in this human body. I want to remind you of my value system, because this has everything to do with the way that I share the Flying Rainbow Lasagna concept, the way that I share this paintbrush with everyone, because my value system from the abstract realm, it is all based in freedom and unconditional love. And I say this almost every class, unconditional love is a tone. It's a tone that we make when we fly through time at one moment for moment. And freedom, I'm starting to describe as a force. That freedom is not just this abstraction like a concept, that it really is a force, like the force of gravity or a force of magnetism. You know, the way that a force is like a force field that affects reality and causes things to happen. Freedom is similarly a force. And so I'm in alignment with that force, not impediment with that force. And all of this has to do with, like, I managed to innovate the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. and figure out how to do this new thing with my non-physical body, with my physical body, and with my energy system in order to have more freedom. And I'm like, I want to share that with other people, but I don't want to impose that or force that on other people. So this is all about you are given the tools. I'm never going to tell you what to do. I'm not just being coy in some way, like, oh, you have to figure it out on your own. It's not just some kind of like puzzlement. I'm not that way. It's really very much like your own artistic journey of exploration. If you were an artist or a musician and you were just beginning to, learn how to express yourself through those modes of creativity, it's up to you to figure out your individual route. So my values, and I have to say this so much because the values from many other non-terrestrial beings are evidenced here on this planet, that they're not about freedom, and that they're horribly not about freedom. They have no problem with rape. They have no problem with taking what they want against another person's wishes. They have no problem with imposing their willpower upon you. And when I'm describing the force of freedom, it's the literal antithesis of that. It is not me imposing my willpower upon anyone else. Even though if we're talking about this like we're in a band and we're playing music together, if that is my music, I'm allowed to play my music. That's not equivalent of imposing my will upon others. That would be if I said, everybody must play this music because I play this music. What I'm really saying is I play this music knowing that it affects other people, it affects the other organisms around me, and I encourage everyone to play their own music knowing that it will affect me. And that's why I want you guys all to be good musicians. That's it. That's it. I don't feel like I have to micromanage or own or control everyone in the entire world. Just be good musicians. And so one way to learn to be good musicians is, through learning music theory and practicing. Okay, so Flying Rainbow Lasagna. First of all, let's do a little bit of recap. If anybody is just tuning into this video for the first time and you're like, who is this interestingly dressed person with a dog on her lap? Well, my name is Aurora. I'm a galactic walk-in, and I came into this body through a genetic oscillation or a portal that I invented, which is called the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And this is the higher dimensional version of this shape. This shape is not one torus, but two tori. I'm trying to hold it so you can see it properly. Two tori, they are at 90-degree angles. And I often draw a flattened, simplified cross-section of this in order to just get everyone on track with understanding that this is made of bundles of time. So both of these shapes, when you look at it, you are understanding with your intellect, I'm looking at bundles of time, bundles of possibilities and probabilities. And when we go into the whiteboard and I tell you about that little time vortex that I'm always drawing, what's that membrane? Okay, time vortex. I hope you can see that color okay. Recap for anyone who's in this class. The scale for time begins with 0 down there, or birth down there, and moves through time in the direction of this arrow. This central core timeline is infinite. It doesn't stop. It's the only one of all of these timelines that doesn't stop. And all of these blue timelines, they, okay, to make everything clear, they actually wrap around in a spiral like this. I always just make that clear in case you're just coming upon this information for the first time. But I, for the ease of diagramming this, draw them as simple lines going upward like this. And we're looking at a cross section here so we understand the lines encroach from both directions. And the area that I want to draw your attention to is this area here where I'm making the big dots. So now they look like lollipops, I know, but those dots are the final moments of each one of these timelines. So each one of these timelines, here I'm making little tiny dots. I don't know if you can see that, but dot, 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 all the way up. You're moving through time. You're moving through time, moment by moment by moment. And as you move through time, it's kind of like an equation, like 1 plus 3 plus 52 plus blah, blah, blah equals the big blue dot that is the final moment of your life. So each one of these timelines that we're looking at here, you can understand as an equation, as a set of behaviors and thoughts and ideas and a set of variables. This plus this plus this plus this plus this, all added up to the big blue dot that is the final moment of your life. If I had my hard drive available, I have my dog on my lap and my hard drive is somewhere else, but I've pulled up my hard drive and I would say that big blue dot is analogous to your hard drive, where you have collected information about your life experiences throughout your time here embedded in the time field. What we're supposed to be doing is doing a live stream here. I'm making like live stream, like you're supposed to do a live stream, sending all that information back to the sun and the stellar network in real time. However, due to our genetic degradation about 10 or 20,000 years ago, we lost signal. And so most people do not talk to the sun during their life. Mostly everything gets stored up in the big blue dot of your hard drive, and then everything gets turned in at the moment of death. And I'm kind of making a very exaggerated membrane there. The membrane of death, rather, is not very super thick like that. In fact, it's supposed to be a place that's totally empty. There's not supposed to be anything there because we're not supposed to hit the membrane of death at all. We're supposed to follow this red trajectory coming from infinity out into reality, assembling here, going up the center, and then going back to infinity. Kind of like that old game Operation. You're never supposed to touch the edges and hear the buzzer sound. You're only supposed to very carefully take out the funny bone. We're not supposed to hit the membrane of death. And hitting the membrane of death has been absolutely an end result of genetic degradation and making our chakras wibble wobble like this. Instead of being nice and steady and aligned like this, the chakras or energy centers of the body, the time bundles of the body, get destabilized like this, and then that has the end result of aligning the needle of awareness like this, or like this, at an angle as opposed to going directly up and down. All of this in order to say, where I'm making these red dots now, those are like, the end part of an equation. Blah plus blah plus blah equals big giant dot. And flying rainbow lasagna, this activity that we're talking about now, does amazing things in allowing you to rearrange the dots that are over here, rearranging these dots and the events that are in those dots. So once again, each one of those dots is like a hard drive or an end of life, final moment experience of being a person or an organism moving through time. And what happens if you can rearrange those events and ideas? What if you can take a little something from over here and a little something from over here and a little something from over here and here, 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 like, little molecules or little scoops from each one of those places and assemble it all together into a new experience. That is what flying rainbow lasagna is. So that's the basic concept that we are going to, I am going to apply to all sorts of different contexts. So flying rainbow lasagna as an abstraction, what does this abstraction do? It brings together formerly divergent realms. As an abstraction, what does this do? It allows us to rearrange things into new formats. So what I'm trying to do here now is give you an idea. Well, you're like, wait a minute, a paintbrush can move paste-like material around on a flat surface. Yes, that is what it can do. So you're like, wait a minute, if it can do it on a flat surface, maybe it can do it on a curved surface. Maybe it can move somewhat gelatinous material around. Like, now you're starting to get it. So let's talk about one of the first things. The flying rainbow lasagna as a tool for bringing together formerly divergent realms. So first we need to understand a membrane, or the thing that is the separator. And that separator can be a tangible experience, a tangible thing that we can point at and experience, like a membrane, like the cell membrane. It can also be something intangible, like the barrier that separates the present moment now from the past and from the future. So what does the flying rainbow lasagna do? So flying rainbow lasagna is that oscillation, that singularity that is the convergence point at the center of this sculpture begins to jump. And that jumping motion, if we have a solid membrane here, kind of going up and down the midline of my face, this singularity jumping back and forth is what renders that membrane no longer relevant, is my best description of it. So you might have a membrane that's like a door or a wall or a thing that's impermeable, and everything that's on this side is different than everything that's on this side, whatever that is. So it can be, like I said, the cell membrane. It can be, the barrier of time. It can be a literal wall. It can be a pane of glass. It can be, think of it, anything that is like one thing versus another thing separated by a thing. Flying rainbow lasagna allows you to oscillate that membrane, making it porous, making it something that's not solid, but instead that energy or information or consciousness or light can now travel across that membrane. So now I'll draw it out as the cell membrane. We have the cell membrane. And I have videos, I'll show videos too. Everyone has already seen them, but I will, you know, re-emphasize all of this. Cell membrane, here is the outer cell membrane, here is the nuclear membrane, right? This is why I just drew one individuated cell. And when you flying rainbow lasagna, I just have to find a different color here. What you do is, let's say you have a singularity that's inside of the cell. Well, that singularity can also be outside of the cell. And then you are making this flying rainbow lasagna shaped bridge between these two points in reality. Because the truth is, the singularity is single. When I draw this infinity symbol over here, it is the 0th dimension. That's 0th, the 0th dimension. I actually drew that out pretty well. 0 not because it's worth nothing, 0 because it's worth everything. It is the literal encompassing of all information, all energy, all particles, the potential for everything. It's everythingness. It's everything. And that singularity is single. There's only one of it. There are not many multiple singularities all around. There's only one singularity. So you're like, wait a minute, Aurora, didn't you just say there's a singularity here and there's a singularity here? Saying to you, yes, there is. There's only one, and in two places. It's a time traveler. The singularity is like a time traveler. So it means that it can be over here, and then it can zoop, travel through time and be over here. And that is exactly what the oscillation movement is like. It's a jumping back and forth. I hope you can see my pen making this jumping back and forth movement and scribbling very horribly over that drawing. Jumping back and forth. I jump over here, then I jump back in this direction, then I jump back in this direction. We do that 8 times. What a wonderful segue into my wonderful animation about the creation of the flying rainbow lasagna. So wait. Let me go to share my screen. And now let me get this. Cool. And now you can see it. So this is how this flying rainbow lasagna shape is created by the oscillation or jumping up and down or back and forth movement of that singularity at least 8 times in, let's call it, higher dimensional reality, in a non-physical reality. Jumping up, jumping down, jumping back up, jumping back down, jumping back up, jumping back down, jumping back up. Chiki's looking at me, jumping back down, jumps up and down 8 times. And I joke to everyone that this is like, you know, we're on the beat. Yeah, and we'll go back, I'll rewind it, go back, and I'll change the pacing a little bit. Look. We're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll rewind again. It's a jumping up and down. It's a dance. This is a dance that is done on a genetic level. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now let me go to, where's this picture that I've got down here? It's the right picture. Miracles do happen. So this is a picture over here, just a very quick, like, cobbled together collage made from this is like the central portion here. I should annotate this. Can I do the annotation? Where's my thing to draw? It doesn't always work. It doesn't always come up when I want it to. I will just use the cursor. Here in the middle, this part of the flying rainbow lasagna is my own drawing. Here where I am showing on the periphery, this is taken from a, you know, like a science text. That is basically a representation of DNA, so that you can understand DNA is a combination of letters, just like I was saying, the big dots that are your end-of-life hard drives on the membrane of death are a series of numbers. So these are like patterns. So I'm never a transhumanist. Wow, I gotta really emphasize that. Hello, I'm Aurora and I'm not a transhumanist. And I perceive humanity as being way more than just a series of letters or numbers like in a pattern. That's not what I'm saying about you. What I am saying is that aspects of your life, aspects of events of your life and the formation of of your cellular body and aspects of your behavior can be represented as a pattern of numbers or a pattern of letters, just like beautiful music can be represented as black little dots on a staff. But no one in the whole world is going to say, oh, black dots equal music. Like no one sits around pressing black dots to their ears and going like this and nodding their head in time. No, no, the experience of music is very, very different. And the black dots are just the representation of the potential for music. So the letters on your DNA are the representation of your potential for life and events. And when I represent your life as a series of numbers, you're not just some calculation, you're much more than that, but the events of your life can be represented as abstractions, black dots on a musical staff, as numbers. And this whole point, in order to tell you, during the DNA life cycle, it is normal for it to split apart so that RNA, the messenger, can read the potential, like read the genetic library, make photocopies of what's relevant, that's called transcription, and then bring it outside of the nucleus. The nucleus is like the library inside of the cell. And the RNA messengers make transcriptions and then bring that information like a copy of a blueprint outside of the nuclear membrane so that it can be utilized by the rest of the cell and maybe even transported out of the cell and used by the rest of the body. So the library itself, like the books are special, sacred, rare books. They don't come out of the body at all. Your DNA, it's like a rare book. It doesn't come out of the special library. It stays in the special library. RNA reads it. And Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a way that you can rearrange the words that are in the special library. So word rearranging in your special library of DNA does happen. It mostly has happened in a negative sense, or the way that science portrays it in a negative sense, through viruses. When viruses invade your nuclei of your cells, they say in their little virus voices, "Don't make your stuff, make my stuff instead." Well, viruses are not friendly and they don't have cute voices. So what they are doing is essentially hijacking your cells and the production of what your cells make. And also mutations. Sorry, I'm just being distracted by things popping up on my screen. Here, I'll go back to my face. Much better. What viruses and mutations are doing, they are making your ordinarily, arranged genetic pattern go awry. And we associate both of those things with lack of health, with dis-ease, not with becoming more healthy, even though I have done extensive presentations about the idea of retroviruses, that at a certain point in biological evolution, the idea is that retroviruses had to introduce certain genetic melodies, the melody of how to attach a placenta to a womb so that you can give live birth. That melody had to be put into the human genetic code, or the primate genetic code, or the rabbit genetic code at some point in developmental history in order for live birth to occur. So viruses are not always evil, horrible things, but not that you should hug a virus. Just to say, it's one way you can rearrange your DNA. And the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is another way that you can rearrange your DNA, because what we're talking about is taking all of the last moments of your various different deaths, or your various different life trajectories that end in the membrane of death, and rearranging them. I don't have a Rubik's Cube, otherwise I would use that as my example, but it's just like Rubik's Cube. I have an imaginary Rubik's Cube here. I'm a mime. And if you twist and turn it and do the sides just right, then you can rearrange all of the seemingly random colors into solid blocks of color. We can do the same thing, rearranging the events on the membrane of death, or the surface of the torus, by using the Flying Rainbow Lasagna in order to rearrange the events of time. So yeah, I should go to this picture over here and get blah, 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 blah. So you've got vortex-based math. And then I know I'm doing all abstract and theoretical, but then we'll get into the practical. I promise everyone, I will get into the practical, I promise. Okay, I'm looking for a very particular picture. I know I'm squinting and making silly faces while I look for it. I know it's here somewhere, guys. I'm usually totally organized. Here we go. And now I gotta go back to this thing. Hold on a second. Oh, it ain't easy, believe me. This one right here. Good. Okay, now I hope you can see everything. I'll move this to the side so you can see everything. Vortex-based math. This was invented by Marco Rodin, or discovered by Marco Rodin. His work is very worthy of looking into. Many people have begun making toroidal-shaped copper coils called Rodin coils. I will write out his name. Where's the spot where you can see it? R-O-D-I-N. I, and Rodin, like the French sculptor Rodin, Marco Rodin, he is the discoverer and popularizer of the idea of vortex-based math. So, you know, I usually draw the cross-section of this yellow sculpture over here, and I usually draw it looking like two circles. I hope you can see that. Okay, two circles, you know, with like some little discs over here. And I hope you can see the similarities there. Let's just find a different color. Orange. To this shape over here. This is kind of, maybe it also looks like a W shape. I don't think you can see what I'm highlighting very effectively. My cursor is not really showing that much, but you can see it's very similar. It looks kind of like two circles next to each other. And this is a cross section of this numbers arrangement that also relates to DNA. I'm bringing up this image because you can see here the skin of the torus. Remember, this yellow sculpture is two tori. So we've got one that is oriented like the horizontally oriented one in the line drawing over there. And we've got one that's not at 90-degree angles like this. So this is half in this line drawing. It's half of what I'm usually showing. But you can see that the surface of the torus has been mapped. And this is part of Rodin's work, that he's a mathematician. And just like if you have ever played the game Sudoku, what is Sudoku? It is a grid game. Like here's a little grid and there are 9 squares. Here I'm drawing 9 squares, just kind of like tic-tac-toe. And there are 9 integers, the numbers 1 through 9. And the numbers 1 through 9 can fit inside of the squares and they cannot be repeated. So that means you can only have 1 1, 1 8, and 1 9. You can't have like 8 8s in the square system. And when you have a Sudoku grid, it's connected to many other grids. So you have to use kind of like puzzle solving to figure out what number fits in what area of the grid. And I just got through describing to you that the membrane of the torus, or the skin of the torus, is kind of like wallpapered with your last moments. And your last moments can be represented as the last part of an equation. Everything equals, giant equals sign, this over here. Birth plus 5 years of school, plus falling down on the playground, plus going to college, plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this, plus your car accident into a brick wall equals the membrane of death. It equals the last moment of your life. And so now we're looking at all of this where I'm scribbling in orange, all of these numbers as not merely being abstractions, but as being abstractions that represent physical things in reality. And if you can rearrange those numbers, big takeaway, if you can rearrange those numbers that are abstract, you can rearrange reality. It would be considered becoming like a god, becoming a divine being, becoming empowered. Let me just drink some water. Becoming empowered here in this world, as opposed to being merely a ping pong ball of consciousness that is bouncing around between the membrane of death, constantly getting, you know, hitting membrane of death, getting unmade, circulating back to the beginning, trying again, drinking water. I understand why that would be a very frustrating life trajectory. It's like you're not in control of your life and you experience endless suffering and death. It's not ideal. It's not what you want at all. My solution class is flying rainbow lasagna. How do we do it and what do we do? Okay, drinking water. And now I'm getting into practicalities. So even when I'm trying to like be super practical, I have to do first an extensive half an hour presentation about abstractions. I know. Okay, so I have a whole PDF that David Lear, who is a wonderful student in this class from several years ago, he wrote out all the things that I say in my videos, because my brain doesn't exactly, I'm not exactly wired from my brain directly to my fingertips to write on a keyboard. So I do lots and lots of these videos and lots of talking, lots of painting. Didn't necessarily have the skills to be able to distill what I'm saying into, you know, one-page description that is accessible to everyone. So it's really wonderful that he did that, because again, everybody has different strength, different fortes in their development, so we can all help each other in this, you know, expression. In the band, everybody has different fortes. So there's a PDF, How to Dance Like the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And we've already done this in this class, and I'm bringing it up because one of the first things that I talk about is I always start off with a Merkaba. Let me drink more. Oh, and I'll get to your wonderful questions too. I always start off with the Merkaba. So now I have to talk about what are the differences and what are the similarities between the Merkaba and the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So the Merkaba, almost everyone that is in this class is familiar with this star tetrahedron. It's two complementary pyramids, and they're equilateral pyramids of four sides. One is pointing upward like this, one is pointing downward like this, and they rotate. So the flying rainbow lasagna is similarly a non-physical. It's like what are the similarities and differences between, let's say, like a square and a triangle? You know, they're both polygons, but they're different and they're differently formed. So the Merkaba and the flying rainbow lasagna are both these higher dimensional shapes, but they're different and they're differently formed and they have different uses. So I have a whole video about what is the Merkaba and what is it used for. It's used for basically it's a light body vessel. That's what it literally means. And there are three main uses for it. The first one is as a shield or like a protection or like a energetic immune system. The next one is used for manifestation, which is cosmic partnership or cosmic lovemaking. And then the third and highest level for virtuosos is for interdimensional travel, right? And so when I say first you start off to do the flying rainbow lasagna by doing the Merkaba, it's like saying I get my bench brush, here's my little brush, sweep all the dust off of my desk, sweep all the dust off of the painting that I'm working on, like clearing the decks, getting everything ready. Or if I'm in the studio, like I'm gonna clean up a little bit. I'm gonna, my studio is usually a horrible mess. Every week I have to clean up because I know it will be on camera in here. But you might want to like get all the coffee cups and snacks and stuff like that out of the studio, kind of clean up the floor a little bit. Like, okay, we are getting ready for a new creative project. And also, you can lock the door. Be like, no, I'm not getting any interruptions right now. I'm busy doing something that's a magical creative activity. I'm going to lock my door. I'm going to put up the, artist at work, please do not disturb signs. That's what the Merkaba is all about. And then the flying rainbow lasagna is like the egg beaters rearranging reality. So these are two different necessary tools that we're using as we are transcending reality, as we are moving in a new way through the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. Let me just drink more water. So I've already spoken a little bit about flying rainbow lasagna as a tool for bringing together formerly divergent realms. So let's then, and you know what else? I'm going to get to Patricia's question. Sorry, I have to squint a little bit. I'm going to be talking about different ways that I've used flying rainbow lasagna. I definitely want everyone who's in this class who's been practicing it and doing it, please share some of your own experiences of how you've used flying rainbow lasagna in your own experience, because that's what this is all about. Like, I invented something and I know how I use it, and I'm encouraging everyone to take that and run with it and do your own thing with it. I gain a lot from hearing how other people have then applied these ideas or these concepts or done something new in their life or with their body by doing this. So yeah, as I'm talking, and we'll go through these things. But wait, let me read what Patricia says over here. Sorry, I'm squinting. Patricia says, it is our divine right to FRL, and anything that interacts with our FRLing does so by vibrational consent. Very good reminder. And like, I don't give everybody freedom. You own freedom. You are free. I will remind you of that freedom. So this is a very wonderful reminder of that freedom. Yes, you do not need my permission to do the flying rainbow lasagna. So I clearly, I invite everyone to be in this webinar if you want to, and I share this information freely. It's not only for millionaires or billionaires, and I don't require, every time, like if I patented it, it's like every time someone does the flying rainbow lasagna, I want to hear ka-ching. It's not like that. It's really not like that. Because also, like, just in the basic value system of practicality, I gain a lot more when the other musicians in the band are good musicians. Tune your instruments, play good music, make this a beautiful world. I gain a lot more than if you had to pay me whatever, 25 cents every time you do the flying rainbow lasagna. I am more wealthy if you become virtuosos and make beautiful life circumstances. Here, let me drink more. What can you do with the paintbrush of reality? Well, that's easy. You can make cool new life circumstances. And that's what I'm encouraging everyone to do. Beginning with your body, your physical body, to be in a state of health and vitality and not smashed up on the highway. So one lovely example, it's a person who's in the class, and she's not logged on right now, named Nicole. I don't always remember people's names. I hope that you're never insulted if I don't specifically remember a person's name or recognize the voice on the telephone. Sometimes like I have these challenges or whatever. And I've found out I'm not the only person this way. But yes, she was driving And she had a near miss that wasn't a near miss. It was kind of like it went through her car. She described that other car was coming into her lane and she saw it come through and superimpose itself on her car. She did the flying rainbow lasagna herself, and then she found herself safely in the lane next door, and the other car that was encroaching, moved on. Basically, she did the flying rainbow lasagna and avoided imminent death. That's the biggest way you can possibly heal. Like, that is a very wonderful way of healing. Now let's talk about other ways of using the flying rainbow lasagna concept as a practicality for healing. So I came into this body through flying rainbow lasagna with the DNA of this body. And the body had already had a lot of neurological damage. There was, a brain injury. And so it's been very challenging to be in a body that has neurological damage. Hey, look at me. I walk, I talk, I play the piano. Things are really good. And this is also after 17 years of healing. But what I had to figure out was if there was, like, if this is a neurological signal that is coming here to the end of this nerve, and then it wants to keep going in this direction, sometimes there was a roadblock. Sometimes there was, in my neurological structure, a nerve signal wanted to get from either one area of my brain to another area of my brain, or from, let's say, my leg or my toe or my back or my whatever, part of my physical body into my brain, that there would be roadblocks. And so what I learned was I could flying rainbow lasagna or jump up and over. So here's how I can describe this as a practicality for healing on a neurological sense, because this is how I had to use it for myself. So I often describe, we are stuck to the flat surface of time like a little ant. A little ant just crawls along, crawls along, crawls along. And when we gain an additional dimension, we gain an additional degree of freedom. It's like growing wings. Imagine a little ant with wings. I think queen ants have wings, and they can jump off the surface of time. They can jump off the surface of the leaf and fly to wherever they want to go, and then land, and then, start doing a new thing. I learned that I could do that with a neurological signal in my neurology, that I could either make the signal jump up and over the blockade, or I could fold the fabric of time, space, and consciousness to where the signal needed to go. I could basically get around the impediment by folding the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. So again, this is a rather exotic or unusual problem-solving method. If you can do it in a simple, mundane way, because remember in previous classes, I think it was Pedro asked, can you do the Merkaba just, to like go down to the coffee shop and, get a little cup of something, or I was joking, returning an old library book or something like that. Like, no, doing the Merkaba in order to travel interdimensionally, just to go to the local coffee shop or return your library book, is like the most expensive, most laborious, most difficult way of possibly utilizing this. Like, it's not for mundane tasks. So yeah, this is like, in order to transcend a neurological injury or something that doctors or whatever might say, like, it's impossible. That's, I say, and I know I'm jumping around a lot. I say, this is an quote unquote impossible shape. I say, I am an impossible shape. I'm an impossible person. So I'm an impossible person. I'm technically not supposed to be here, but I am here because I flying rainbow lasagna. So just like I avoided the death of this body in the attack that killed the previous ego occupant, that Nicole avoided death also, in terms of not having a car smash into her. How did she do that? What that means is she there was, like, let's say, a script of reality that was written that said, and then the car would come out of the left-hand lane and smash into your vehicle and you would be dead and broken up on the highway. And she was like, no, I don't think I like that. What I'm going to do is erase out the part in the script that says the car is going to come into my lane and smash into my car, and write in a new opportunity. And the new opportunity says my car will safely move into the other lane and my body will not be smashed up on the highway. So what she was able to do was rearrange the numbers on the skin of the torus, rearrange the numbers that are like the descriptor of reality, changing the equation. So we are sophisticated quantum computers or quantum calculators. And that's what we're doing here in the time field with our lives. We're kind of calculating, figuring out what happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? I've also said it's like a choose your own adventure novel, if you ever read those as a teenager or whatever. This is a rearrangement of the basic variables that end in the equation equals the final moment of your life. You can change those variables to the point that your equal sign does not equal death. That was what I did. That was what she did. That is a level of transcendence or negation of death and or profound healing that is open to everyone. That each one of us has this capacity inside of us. So it's not just for special people. Literally, all of us in this generation can begin to transcend or avoid the necessity of death by doing the flying rainbow lasagna. So transcending death, my example of healing is healing like through, neurological healing. Someone else contacted me, they asked me about healing because they had a trauma from their birth. Something about like a forceps delivery, something that had caused a nerve problem in their body and in their face. So they wanted to know, they said, hey, Aurora, can I flying rainbow lasagna with another version of myself? That if we were drawing this, in the little whiteboard drawing, here, let me go to the drawing. If we were drawing this over here, you just get a different color, you can see. Maybe my friend is on this timeline over here, and she got a neurological damage from a difficult delivery when she was being born. Can she flying rainbow lasagna with maybe a different timeline, maybe one over here? And the answer is yes. Let me draw it in a different color that you can see. I don't mean to drive you crazy. Colors really matter to me. Let's say she starts with this timeline over here, but she can flying rainbow lasagna with this version of self over there. Look at that. She's making like a bridge across time, bringing together two formerly divergent realms or places that couldn't touch, that couldn't meet and communicate. And what she can do is take a little slice or a little snippet or a little sample out of that version of self. So now I need to start talking about this approach of using the flying rainbow lasagna. The idea of getting genetic inspiration. Let me drink a little bit of juice too. Some wonderful cannabis juice here. Cannabis, sorry. And we're talking about taking a sample from another person or from another version of you. So your DNA is always dancing. It's always making movements. It's always emitting music. It creates like a melody. You have your own, melody and abstraction of the music that you're playing. And this is just like, hip hop music. Hip hop music, you can take samples from another style of music. You've got your basic beats, your basic bass line and other melodies going on, but then you might want to take a little bit of Mozart or a little bit of Jimi Hendrix and snip their inspiration out of their music and their song and put it into your song. So this is exactly what the tardigrades or woolly bears, tiny microscopic animals, do. This is what lateral gene transfer is. This is what beneficial, benevolent retroviruses do. We can do this in terms of flying rainbow lasagna in order to get whatever genetic snippets or samples you need from anyone at any time, at any place. So wait, before I go into that, I need to talk about flying rainbow lasagna and covalent bonding across time. This is all advanced stuff. Covalent bonding is how molecules are made. So atoms stick together because molecules stick together because their atoms share electrons. If here's one atom and here's another atom, and atoms have these electron shells, and they're supposed to have a certain number of electrons in their outer shells so that they are stable. And let's say this is supposed to have 4 electrons, 1, 2, they're not such good looking electrons, 3. This one's empty, it doesn't have a 4. It's missing an electron there. And this one does have 4 electrons, 1, 2, 3. Here, let's say that this one does have 4. I don't know if I'm explaining this exactly completely right, but the basic idea is that this entire atom becomes bonded with this atom and makes a molecule because they share an electron. This is the whole idea. That's the main information that I want you to come away with. This electron that I'm circling in red begins to circulate through this shell of this atom, and then it circulates back around to this one. Make kind of a figure 8 between these two. This is covalent bonding. And ordinarily, we can only have covalent bonding between electrons that are in the same time and place. Like if we've got atom number 1 and atom number 2, and they both live in New Jersey on October 10th, at the same time and place, then they can bond together. But what if one of them lives in Pakistan and one of them lives in New Jersey? Those atoms cannot bond. It's too far for the electrons to go. What if what if they both live in New Jersey, but one of them lives in New Jersey of 10,000 years ago, and one of them lives in New Jersey of 2018? Then they likewise cannot bond because they are separated by time. But what do we know now about flying rainbow lasagna? That flying rainbow lasagna can bring together things that were formerly divergent realms. So through flying rainbow lasagna, what we can now have are molecules that are made out of atoms bonded across time. So that's not just an abstraction. It's not just like, oh, the atoms of my water. Like I can have some of my hydrogen of my water bonding with some, ancient oxygen. And what would that look like? If I drew it as a picture, what would that look like? Let's draw a picture. So here's one big giant atom that is the hydrogen atom, and then here's the two little like Mickey Mouse ears that make up the oxygen atoms. Except maybe there's not one oxygen atom. Maybe it's not actually there. So I'm going to erase that oxygen atom, and then I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to make a molecule of water bonding together. I don't know if you can see that over there. Bonding together, this is a membrane of time. I'm going to put together, here we go. This is going to combine with this through flying rainbow lasagna-ing across time. And now what we're going to do is have these two water molecules that are created because they're sharing an electron across time. My words, I feel like I'm really laboring to try to describe this, but I really hope that you're able to understand it through the pictures. That we can have a molecule of water that exists in the present moment that takes part of its molecular structure from a water molecule or a non-water molecule in a completely different time or a completely different place. This is restructuring matter. And when I talk about doing this, I mean, you can do it. You can just imagine it as like a glass of water that's behaving differently than it ordinarily would. But what I really want you to understand and think about is your own body. The water in your own body can begin to do this flying rainbow lasagna. And when we do the flying rainbow lasagna, it's not just in one direction. It's not just up and down like this. It can literally be in every single orientation. And I'll show you that on the video too. So as I go through the video, hold on a minute, go to the desktop. This animation just shows some of the main orientations of flying rainbow lasagna. So here we have it, spinning and whirling and existing at this orientation. It's going to go to the sideways orientation. Let me drink a little bit more water while this is going. It's going to go to the other orientation. And then it's going to start spinning end over end, end over end. Those are like the basic motions, kind of like north, south, east, west, or like saying the basic integers, 1, 2, 3, 4. But what we can do is have 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. We don't just have to have the basic integers. So wait, let me stop and go back to my face. Because you might imagine like, oh, I'm imagining all of my cells are just jumping up and down like they're on little pogo sticks. They don't just have to jump up and down. They can jump up, side, half side. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's not just that these have to be at 90-degree angles. They can be at 45-degree angles. They can be at 33-degree angles. You can do at 360 degrees. So when I'm talking about these jumping in and out motions, if this is your cell, if I'm a cell and I'm doing the flying rainbow lasagna, I'm jumping in and out and up and down from every direction. And I can do that, and I can connect with other cells. I can connect with other atoms. I can connect with other electrons. I can connect with those things in far distant times, and I can connect with those things in far distant places. Patricia says very wonderfully with insight. First, she said equal opportunity lasagna. I love that. And then she says a synthesis of two realities. Wow. Thank you for that insight. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for getting it, because that's exactly what this is about. Superseding or superpositioning. So in the quantum world, the idea of superpositioning is like taking two different versions of reality and putting them on top of each other. And that is exactly what happens when we do the flying rainbow lasagna. We've got this one version of reality, and then it jumps up here and we have a different version of reality. And a good analogy to this, if you have two eyes, is to close one eye and then close the other eye. Like first we're looking at the world through this perspective. Oh, now we're looking at the world through this perspective. There are two different perspectives. It's the same being. It's the same perception, the same person that has two different eyes and two different perspectives. This is the same thing of time, but half of the time it's in this perspective up here and half of the time it's in this perspective down here. There are two slightly different realities. So if we use the example of Nicole and the car wreck reality, there's actually there's the non-car wreck reality and the car wreck reality. And flying rainbow lasagna is when you vibrate between those two different realities and you take the samples that you want from each reality. I'm going to take a scoop from there and a scoop from there, and I'm going to put them both on my plate and I'm going to eat it at the same time. I sometimes call it the genetic buffet, or you could call it like the cosmic buffet. You know, the idea if you go to whatever, you go like to a Chinese buffet, there's all of these different dishes, and what you can do is be like, I want one scoop of General Tso's chicken, then I want one scoop of cashew and bamboo sprouts, and then I want one scoop of vegetables, and I put them all on my plate at the same time, and I eat them all at the same time. That is exactly what I drew with this, I'm getting all excited here, with this image on the whiteboard. That's what this is. That's what this is. All of these little segments taken from various different last moments, all put on your dish at the same time so that you can experience the flavors and nutrients of those different possibilities in reality all at once. It's a blending together of different realities. This is a total transformation in our experience of time and our experience of being embedded in time. So ordinarily, up until this point, humanity has been linear, experiencing a linear progression of time. You wake up in the morning like the little ant stuck to the flat surface of the leaf, and then you crawl to lunch, and then you crawl to dinner, and then you get on your pajamas and you go to sleep, and then you do the cycle again. What you cannot do as a little ant is go directly to dinner. No, you can't do that. You need wings to do that. You need to jump off the surface of your leaf and fly to dinner, or jump off the surface of your leaf and fly to a completely different leaf. That would be like flying to a different world, a different realm, a different level of reality. So this bringing together formerly divergent realms, it can be bringing together different aspects of your own life, because remember, in this bundle of possibilities and probabilities, you've got different versions of you, and then you're not alone in the world. You can be flying rainbow lasagna-ing with people who lived in deep antiquity, people who will live. And all of this begins to really matter. You have to do this level of time travel with your consciousness if you want to really talk to the stars, because the stars are living on a different time scale, and also they're very, very far away. So if you had to be like, I'll do this all by line of sight. If I'm going to send out a message from my brain to a star, it has to fly all the way across the vast reaches of space before it hits that star. And then someone over there picks up the phone and says, hello. It's already been like 93 billion years for them to get my initial hello. And then they're like, oh, cool. Someone on Earth is talking to me. I'm going to send a message all the way back. They send it all the way back. It's been 17 billion years. Everyone on Earth has died. There's no longer even a planet here. It's, floating asteroid dust or something. Like, it's no longer relevant. The only way to have a conversation with far distant beings, and where it's still relevant to your biological time scale, is through flying rainbow lasagna, where we are folding the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. That now our message doesn't have to go all the way across vast billions of years to get to each other. it can happen very fast. And then there's not so much of a time lag. And all of that matters because we're not in separate bodies. We're in one body. And this is all about the ability for neural stimulation on your toe to actually go all the way up your spine and actually reach your brain and actually talk before the body dies. Like, what if you're like your toe, you stub your toe, and the neural signal takes so freaking long to get to your brain that before you even know that you have hit your toe on something, you're dead. That's what it would be like if we could not fold the fabric of space, time, and consciousness and have this type of conversation. We are like the toe. No offense to toes anywhere. Toes are wonderful. But we are like out in the boondocks on this planet, far away from the central, galactic core. That's like the central neurology of our galaxy. And if we had to wait for a signal to be sent all the way from the center of the galaxy to where we are more near the periphery, it would take so long that by the time it reached us, everything would be moot. It wouldn't matter anymore. We would all be dead. We would all be gone, or the situation would already be resolved. In order for us to have real experiences, like I'm telling you, we're supposed to not merely send back our information at the moment of death, like a recorded hard drive. We're supposed to have a live stream to the sun and the stars and the galaxy, the galactic intelligence, so that it knows what's going on in real time, because that's the conductor telling the musicians what to play and when to play it. And it's totally not right for us. We're supposed to be able to communicate in real time in order to be able to understand all of this. So let's talk about like re-embroidering reality, because we have a lot of things in reality that aren't supposed to be in reality. And I've spoken about this extensively too. So cat is out of the bag. I don't have to hide anything. Like the idea that wrong people have been conceived either through IVF or through the inappropriate sexual partners. Like there's a lot of things that aren't supposed to be in existence. There's people that aren't supposed to be in existence. There's synthetic replicants. There's, and again, I always say this, like, this is not a justification for eugenics. Don't get your machine gun and go out and shoot everyone because Aurora said you're not supposed to be in existence. No, that's the solution is not machine guns. Believe it or not, everyone. I know, mind-blowing as it might be, the solution is actually to flying rainbow lasagna and do that superpositioning. So let's say we've got different versions of reality. And in this version of reality, there's, person 1 and person 3, and person 3 is not supposed to be in existence. We're not going to take person 3 as one of our scoops at the buffet. We're going to take person 1. Person 1, you go on my plate. And then let's go into a different position. And in this position, oh, there's person 2. Person 2, you get a scoop and you go on my plate. Because person 1 and person 2 are supposed to be in existence. Person 3 is not supposed to be in existence. Person 3 does not go on my plate at the genetic buffet. This is how we can begin to refine our experience from the, kind of there's this mishmash right now of all of these different consciousnesses that are in the band, horrible musicians and beautiful musicians. And it's a bit difficult for the little high piccolos to play effectively with the horrible barbarians and everything. How do we resolve all of this? Oh, the answer is we begin to superposition reality. And as we superposition reality, we can take the scoops of people that are doing the correct music, and they can go on the actual plate. And the people that aren't doing the correct music do not have to come to be a part of the band. So wait. Patricia says, can you heal person 3? What an excellent question. My answer is, to heal person 3, the definition of heal in this context would be to send them to a state of entropy or non-existence. This is, again, not like violently shooting someone or guillotining them or anything like that. This sculpture contains the representation of 2 different positions, one of which is energy and one of which is entropy, or let's call it being and non-being. And those 2 places that I just pointed to, those places are both where my pinky is pointing. That same one singularity contains 2 different states of being, just like my face contains 2 eyes that have 2 slightly different perspectives. Right eye, left eye, right eye, left eye. Being, non-being, being, non-being. So the whole idea is person 3 is not supposed to be in existence. They were not told by the conductor, play your instrument, go get born, play your instrument now. They were not. They just decided to do it, even though it's not right. They're not supposed to be in existence. So what real healing for them would be non-being, unmaking. So I don't know if anybody even knows this analogy anymore because everything has changed so much. But the idea of like an audio tape or a videotape, you know, something that's like a linear taping format, because not everything is digital or on a CD or something like that. But it used to be that everything was like on a spool with a tape, and you record. But then what you can do if you don't like your recording is you can rewind. So the idea of unmaking person number 3, or a consciousness that is not supposed to be in existence, it would be like rewinding them through time. Imagine if you took an adult person and if you could roll time backwards, like in an old-fashioned film strip, run the machine backwards so that one spool goes onto the other spool. You're going backwards in time, and that you roll backwards to the point of that, you know, to the conception or creation of that person. And then you do not have that, when you begin moving forward through time, you do not have that person conceived or in the time field anymore. So this is like, yeah, Patricia says, can you heal person 3 with the FRL, or should we just avoid? She actually says, we have authority to entropy. Yes, Patricia, thank you. You absolutely have authority to entropy. That is like saying, I'm giving you not only a pencil, but a pencil that has an eraser. Like we're in school, you know, and also like as an artist, not even just like as a person who's learning stuff. As an artist, I don't have my little notebook easily available, but I have a notebook and I draw in there and I make all sorts of mistakes in my drawings. I don't try to be perfect, like these finished pieces and, you know, the pieces that you see around my studio. That was after many rough sketches and things where I allowed myself to make mistakes. The whole point being, like, as an art teacher, I encourage everyone to understand it. And as a working artist, you're allowed to make mistakes. That is part of the creative process. You're allowed to erase things. You're allowed to try things out, kind of squint, see if it looks good. No, it looks crappy. Erase it out, wipe it out with turpentine rag, paint over it, do whatever. That's the whole idea of being allowed to send something to entropy. And when also, this is another big thing. Please, no one, not you in this class, but no one who's watching this video or who's, you know, accessing it randomly or whatever, please do not claw your eyes out or get a machine gun or any of these things. If I tell you that demons are in your own genetic code, that's where demons live. That they don't just live randomly, like on whatever, on a lava-filled planet or something like that, planet demon. No, they live in you. They live in your body. They live in your DNA. And that's the whole point, is that each one of us, we are all empowered to clean up our own DNA and, let's say, the lineages that feed into it and also that emanate from it. That's the value of being here in a body. Let me drink more water. Why bother being in a body? This is so tiresome. We got to eat and poop and do laundry. Being in a body is so hard. Why should I have a body? Because you have DNA. And you have DNA. It means that these invaders, part of what they are inhabiting is you. And you get to say, hey, these are my boundaries. These are my boundaries. You're not allowed to be inside of me. That's the whole, that's like a big takeaway from everything that I teach here. Your body is your quantum laboratory. That your art studio is your art studio. No one else is allowed to sneak into your art studio, steal your paints, steal your canvases, and use it to make ugly paintings that you would never make. And that is literally what demons have been doing to humanity and with human DNA for millennia in all of recorded human history. They have hijacked the human body and the human genome and the behavior of our DNA and affected reality in a negative way. This is why person number 3 exists, why people who aren't supposed to be in existence are in existence. It's why disease is in existence. It's why death is experienced. Why is death in existence? Because of the existence of these beings that live in your DNA. So again, don't kill yourself, don't shoot yourself, don't shoot others, because you know something, when you start to awaken, like when you start to have your inner perception, with like opening an eye or having your eyesight focused, Like you'll start to see demons everywhere. When I first came here as Aurora, I saw demons everywhere. And I started to learn if I spoke about it too openly, that people would kind of look at me funny, and that then they might try to stop me, you know, in some way from speaking about it. And so then I learned, like, okay, I couldn't speak about it very openly back then, but now it's quite open. And I'm also, many people speak about this, and also I'm much more established in my, you know, life here as a word. No one's going to, you know, throw me away because I say, you know, like, you know what I'm talking about? No one's going to incarcerate me because I'm talking about demons. I've had to, like, you know, transform, had to wait until society was ready to speak about this that openly, and also transform my life so that I would not be, what's the word, like, made vulnerable by talking about something that is an unpopular truth. Too many people have gone into whatever mental hospitals, or have been, you know, medicated against their will because they spoke about truth, but in an unwise way. So I started to learn very clearly. Couldn't talk about demons right away, but now I speak about them very openly. And yes, also, I don't want people to jump off a bridge or do any violence to themselves or others because of this. The solution is not violence. The solution is not death, not more death. Death is the aberration. It's not supposed to exist, even for evil beings or beings that are not supposed to be in existence. The solution is not like to squash them with a steamroller and make their brains explode. No, the solution is flying rainbow lasagna, because this shape contains both beingness and non-being. You send them to a state of non-being, and it's not some horrible punishment, which the idea of, you know, the Judeo-Christian world, it's like, oh, demons belong in hell, and it's a horrible brain-boiling place, and, you know, whatever, you're made to listen to horrible music all the time, and pointy things are stuck inside of you. That's not what entropy is. So now I have to talk about, what is entropy? Entropy is achieving a state of superdensity. If I go to the whiteboard and talk about the states of matter. The states of matter. I think I need to clear stuff out. Wait, do some erasing. And let me just drink a little bit of water here. I'm erasing all of these old electrons. And now I'm going back to drawing. Hold on a second. Let me drink a little bit more. Almost everyone is familiar with the states of matter, from solid to plasma. Like here's solid stuff that's like, you know, molecular matter that we're, you know, here, this lasagna is solid. We all agree with that. Then there's liquid. Here I'm drawing some flowing liquid at this temperature and this level of pressure. Here, my water in my cup is liquid. Now I will make little tiny dots. You can barely see them on your screen, but I'll tell you that they're there. These little tiny dots are gas. I'm breathing in gas with my nostrils as we speak. This room is filled with gas, everyone. Yes, gas is our atmosphere. Up from gas is plasma. So now I'm going to draw just, I don't know, some, here you go. This represents plasma. It's actually a flame of a fire. If I draw this, maybe it looks more like a fire flame. Yeah, if I had a little cigarette lighter, I would flick my lighter and point to the flame, and I would say that is plasma. Plasma is superheated gases, and it's light that are in disarranged waves. And then up from that is beam. So now I'm going to draw this. This is like a laser beam, or, you know, a perfectly coherent beam of light. This is what happens when you have all of the peaks and all the troughs of the light. Like plasma is not aligned peaks and troughs. It's light that goes all over the crazy place. This final stage up here is the most organized, the highest vibrations, the highest frequency, and it's light organized into a beam. Okay, so these are all from solid all the way up, solid, which is tangible, all the way up to this beam of light, which is not tangible. It's not solid, it's not dense. But there's one more state of matter that we all got to talk about, and I'm going to make it down here, and I'm going to just draw like a big black heavy line, and this is called a Bose-Einstein condensate. And I will write it out for everyone here. Oops, I didn't do it right. Do it again. Okay, cool. Bose-Einstein condensate is a type of super dense matter. So matter, what determines all of these states of matter that I'm squiggling on over here is heat. and motion. That the more heat or energy you add to a system, if we're starting here at solid, then the more motion you get moving up to the less dense realms. But what if we take heat away? What if we're over here at this level of solidity, physical matter, like you and me in the lasagna? And what if we take heat away? What if we make it get colder? And we're going in this direction down here. Colder means we're taking heat away. The molecules are moving more and more slowly. And as they move very, very, very slowly, like if we are not at 0 degrees Kelvin, but almost 0 degrees Kelvin, and there's almost no molecular movement. What happens is if these are all individual atoms, they were acting like individuals, and maybe they were bouncing against each other, hitting this way, hitting this way, hitting this way. When they get to be almost completely frozen, what happens is that they start to smear on top of each other, and they start to act almost as if they are all one atom moving in unison. So the idea is, the takeaway conclusion for this is, when matter goes to a very, very cold, dense state, known as a Bose-Einstein condensate, it achieves unity consciousness. When we achieve, back to my face. Unity consciousness is achieved by either going to a state of total energy. That's like when you become one with the sun and the stars. You get a lot of energy. So look, we're in a solid body. What if I gave you, 10 million, billion, trillion units of energy? You would go whoop, and you would go all the way into the highest, realm of pure energy and beingness. Beingness, you would be, you would be everything. Beingness up here. What if I took away all of your energy? I take away all of your energy, I take away all of your heat, I take away all of your molecular movement, all of your consciousness. I suck it up like a vacuum cleaner, suck, 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 suck. And then what do you have? Then you have a state of total entropy. That's down here, where you become frozen. Frozen. I can't talk, everyone, I'm frozen. That's frozen, like a bug being splatted on the windshield of time. That's what is supposed to happen when you hit the membrane of death. You're supposed to hit the membrane of death and be frozen. I'm not moving anymore. I'm not moving through time. The whole idea of this setup. The great composer is super, super freaking smart. The great composer said, hey, if you want to move through time, you have to play beautiful music. If you don't play the right music, what happens is you get frozen and you don't get to move through time anymore. And the point that I'm telling you about the Bose-Einstein condensate, being frozen is not like what the traditional Judeo-Christian hell, even though I know that Jews traditionally didn't have a teaching about hell, they had a teaching about a gray wandering purgatory-like place called Sheol. But the Bible and the Torah, this is Judeo-Christianity, that gives us this idea of an afterlife with reward and punishment, that we would equate energy and beingness as the Christian heaven, and then entropy and non-beingness as the Christian hell, and that's not truthful. So I have to make real clarity here. Non-being and being are both unity. The right eye and my left eye on my face are still my face. It's still the singularity. It's still unity consciousness. But I don't want anyone to conflate this with any ideas like you should go hug and love a demon. No, you shouldn't hug and love a demon. But what you should do is understand that some personality characteristics on a cosmic level, some meta personality characteristics are moving towards energy. They're becoming more coherent, more energized. A song or a note that keeps on going. It keeps on going. It keeps on going, keeps on going, keeps on going, as opposed to a thing that's not supposed to keep on going, a thing that is supposed to be frozen, a thing that is supposed to stop and not move anymore. And these two things are complementary. So again, not a demonic apologist, not a transhumanist. Do not hug and kiss and love a demon. A demon is acting badly because it is still moving through time. And the reason and the way that it is moving through time is through siphoning off energy from you and me. We're supposed to be moving through time. We're supposed to be being. And these things are not supposed to be being. They're supposed to be non-being, non-existent. They're not supposed to be in existence. So this is a big takeaway from this presentation, in our own bodies, each one of us, has an interior struggle between being and non-being, the parts of me that are supposed to exist and the parts of me that are not supposed to exist. And they endlessly fight together, but it doesn't have to be endless anymore, because now there is a paintbrush that has been invented called the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, which allows each one of us to take the stuff that's inside of our own body, and some of it gets to be, and some of it does not get to be. And you are the artist that gets to determine and choose which things be and which things do not be. So Salou says, in the Bose-Einstein of unity consciousness, is there any awareness at all? There is not a state of awareness. There is a state of unawareness. So right now, we, consciousness, are experiencing awareness. I'm like, hey, that's my hand. Hey, that's my dog. Hey, I'm sitting on a chair. Hey, I'm drinking some water. Like, these are all things that I'm aware of. The experience of being a Bose-Einstein condensate, or, you know, like in a state of total entropy, would be non-being, non-awareness. You don't feel like your tushy is sitting in a chair. You don't feel like you're drinking water. You don't have a sense of self. You don't look at your hand. You don't experience anything. There is no awareness at all. And that state of being is itself a state of unity consciousness. Because this is a big question. Mommy, daddy, if God is good, how can good and evil both be subsets of God? And everybody asks this at a certain point in their development. And the answer is right eye and left eye are both part of the same face. And I'm not an apologist for evil. Evil has been so troubling to us because evil has been moving in the wrong direction. Evil is supposed to be falling backwards, going into entropy, going from, that source convergence point, energized, infinite position to a state of non-being with no energy. So that's the whole idea. Is we're doing lesson 18 a little bit early. There were once a bunch of beings that were not supposed to be at the source. And so they were supposed to be entropic, but instead of being entropic, what they decided to do is emanate themselves from the source and start to feed off of you and me. So then instead of falling backwards off a large building and eventually sliding on the ground, they just kind of hovered. And they've been hovering for like 10, 20,000 years while they are like vampires off of you and me. And it's not cool because not only are they hovering, and they're hovering in our DNA, but they're like clinging to your ankles when you want to rise up. You want to go to a state of total awareness. And think about this also, those entropic beings running in human DNA, that is what has cut us off from live streaming our lives to the sun and the stars and the stellar network. When I say we want to be a state of total beingness and total energy and total connectedness and unity consciousness, and there are genetic invaders that are preventing your mind and your consciousness from effectively connecting to a unity level. This is like why we are separated from the divine, why we've been separated from divinity. And what's the solution is we beings who are supposed to be, we're supposed to be in existence, and all of our personality characteristics are supposed to be in existence. And we're not supposed to be separated from the sun and the stars and the everythingness. The beings that are separating us are supposed to go into a state of entropy, frozen. They're supposed to be frozen and stop making our lives so difficult by impeding our connection to the divine. It's the solution. It's the solution to all of this. This is why I'm here as Aurora, to share the solution. Like, we don't have to have horrible struggles, and we don't have to have wars, and we don't have to have guillotines in order to fix and heal. Like, our planet has been horribly invaded. Our genetic code has been horribly invaded. So much suffering has happened as a result of this. And I understand that humans have a lot of, like, we need healing because people are very, when you've been victimized, it's appropriate to be angry at your victimizer. It's your perpetrator. If we as a planet have been raped, it is appropriate for us to take that degradation and anger and, turn it around to the rapist. And so that's why some people have that fantasy of rivers of blood shall flow, angry space Jesus bearded space God will come down with a magical sword and cut off the heads of all of the infidels of whatever religion, whatever flavor religion. Blood will fill the streets, and then only the righteous shall survive. And that's not what I'm advocating. So I hope that's really clear that I'm not advocating for violence or like disposal, like, oh, this consciousness should just be thrown in the trash and, we're just going to cut up their heads. It's not like that. It's more a sense of sending things to the place where they are supposed to be. That's what this energy and entropy idea is. You send things to the place where it's supposed to be. So if our entire universe, and when I say universe, I mean this particular version of time, not the entire cosmos, not the entire time field, but just this universe. And science describes this universe as having the potential to be roughly like 28 billion years. And let's say we're about 14 billion years. We're about halfway through this book is what I'm trying to say. And what happens at the end of science's description of the universe and the stars and the time field here? So science describes that there is a limited number of material from which stars can be born. And this is truthful, that for stars are living beings. For them to be born or coalesce, you need to have dust and gas in a nebula of potential. And it eventually kind of squishes together and achieves density necessary to be able to emit light and be like a portal for consciousness, and it has metabolism. And then the big point is at the end of a star's lifespan, it collapses into itself, it backflips into itself, and it creates an infinitely stretched singularity point, stretching the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. The infinitely heavy bowling ball stretches that fabric into itself. And there's like, a black hole or a portal that is there. So at the end of time, as described by science, all of the possible stars that could ever be born will be born. All of those stars will live, metabolize, and die. And then all that you will have is a giant a giant universe, like a Swiss cheese, with many, many, many black holes all around. And all of those black holes are drawing light and heat and consciousness into them. And at a certain point, those black holes will draw in all of the light, all of the heat, all of the awareness or consciousness that is in this universe, send it somewhere else. And what is left here is the most cold, dead, inert place imaginable. That's in like about 14 more billion years. So what I'm trying to say is this state of entropy down here is inevitable according to science's understanding and science's model of the metabolism of stars. It's just going to take 13 or 14 more billion years. And I don't know about you, but I have things that I want to do. I'm like, I'm not going to wait that long. And if you wait for that, then it's like the restaurant's at the end of the universe. It's already happened already. It's already done. The universe is gone. And I don't want to just be like, oh, great. Now everyone is finally happy and finally in their place and the universe is gone. We can do this right now. That's the whole point that this comes from Patricia asking the question, do we have authority to entropy? The answer is yes. The answer is a relieved yes. Oh God, thank you God. Because we don't have to wait 13 or 14 billion years to be happy. Isn't that nice? Like how many people are in a life situation right now where they're like, I'll be happy when I get out of this horrible marriage. I'll be happy when I get to stop working at this horrible job and retire. I'll be happy when I get to graduate from this horrible school program. I'll be happy when I get to blah, blah, and blah, blah, blah. And I never have to blah, blah, blah anymore. Like everybody is so used to that. I'll be happy when blah, blah, professional politician is out of office. I'll be happy when blah, blah law is overturned. I'll finally be happy when. The good news is we don't have to apply that level of thinking to our entire universe and say we as consciousness, as beings who are supposed to be in existence, will be happy when these naughty turds finally get flushed in 13 billion years. Like that's so after the fact, I don't want to have to wait that long. So the answer is each one of us owns our own body. That's not a small thing at all. And that's why it was a huge fight for me to come into this body. And I like to say I bent the rules of the cosmos. I didn't break any rules, but I bent a lot of rules. And there's a lot of people that are kind of like, what is she doing? She's not allowed to do that. And I'm like, I'm allowed to do it. I'm not breaking any rules. But yeah, they totally did not want me to be in this body doing this. And of course, I'm blasting out all these demons, like demons that are in my body. I'm like, entropy, entropy, entropy. You know what I sometimes imagine? If you ever watched the Harry Potter movies, they have this little thing called a deluminator that's used to turn off lights. Like, you click it and the street light goes out. You click it and the light bulb goes off. I imagine that I have a deluminator for these demonic consciousnesses. They start to talk to me internally, and I'm just like, click, I turn off your light, click, I turn off your light. Because I used to imagine some kind of Ghostbusters thing with, like, you know, a cosmic vacuum, and I'm vacuuming up their energy and everything. And it's like, let's just stop fighting. Let's stop struggling. Let's stop fighting. Click, 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 click. And, you know, just keep this all linked. So Joelle is saying, Aurora, have you ever heard of the middle path as compared to the right and left-hand path? This whole idea of dying to the world and the flesh like Christ taught, not in the sense of your body dying, but of disengaging from polarity and not taking a side in the drama, letting go of attachment. Would this be the same thing as going up the central timeline through the wormhole and not to either side towards the membrane of death? I think that's a beautiful analogy. It's not a 100% overlay, like there's some poetic interpretation there, but I think that's a beautiful analogy. My understanding of the middle path is that it was away from extremism of, you know, Siddhartha, the man, had explored both, you know, profound asceticism and starvation and self-denial, and then decided that and also came from a time of great abundance and great riches. So it had times of riches, times of huge self-denial, and then found out that those extremes were not how to actually, you know, achieve enlightenment, that it was more of a finding a more moderate path. And I would say that that can relate to Flying Rainbow Lasagna in the sense of non-duality. Like, I think many people in a Judeo-Christian sense are wasting their energy in judgment, that they are saying to, you know, according to what they basically walk around saying, I have a strict set of rules according to my set of rules. You are bad, wrong, and evil, and I'm going to spend a lot of my inner energy saying that to you and thinking that to you and thinking that. And it's like, instead of saying that, again, I don't want you to hug a demon, but what you can say is, your path, if you have those values and you see someone not agreeing with your values, you're like, hey, you're moving in the opposite direction to me. That's the whole idea. We have Flying Rainbow Lasagna. We have a portion of reality moving towards the ceiling and a portion of reality moving towards the carpeting. And that if I'm moving towards the ceiling, I don't have to force you and everyone else in the world be like, move towards the ceiling or else. That's like, you know, no, the truth, my acceptance comes from understanding that I can move towards the ceiling and towards total awareness and unity consciousness, regardless of what anyone else is doing. Like, that's the whole thing. I'm not going around trying to convert or proselytize anyone else or try to make anyone else act in a particular way. Literally, that's what freedom is. It's allowing everyone to go where they wish to go. Hold on. I think a big misunderstanding, even though it might come from good intentions, is this idea of like, oh, if you see someone on the wrong path and like you're supposed to somehow like grab them like a lifeguard and tow them into the shore and make their lives so much better. And I'm learning more and more that that is not appropriate behavior. And it's a challenge for me to accept that, because, you know, my mission, and I'm here as Aurora, tell everyone about Flying Rainbow Lasagna. It's like, if I'm the teacher, I'm not going to say to anybody in the class, like, you're never going to learn. You're never going to learn to play piano. Just give up. Like, I'm not supposed to say that. So it has taken me a lot of experience, time in the human realm to start to understand, you know, something. Some people are in profound addiction, or are in profound levels of self-destruction, or are they're devolving instead of evolving. They are spiraling away from coherence, not going towards greater coherence. And like I told you, a note that just keeps going. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. Because I used to look at people who might be in drug addiction or homeless, or, you know, people who were clearly peripheral selves, clearly not the central version of a person who was supposed to be, and think like, oh, they could fly Rainbow Lasagna, they could this and that. I started to understand like they might need to go to a state of entropy, that they might not be going towards a state of continued existence, that they might need to go to entropy. And so I found that there was a great relief that came from not trying to make everybody go to beingness and unity consciousness in that direction, if that's not the direction they want to choose. So there's some people, it's very clear. Some people are like profoundly evil, demonic beings. There's a lot of politicians that are in this category where it's like, they are not going to energy. They are going to entropy. It's very, very clear. But then when I would, you know, like those people, I feel much less, whatever, I'm not concerned, but whatever. If I gave them less slack, but then I cut a lot of people a lot of slack. I'd be like, well, you know, that guy, blah, blah, he's a homeless guy, he might have potential inside. But then I started to understand that there are some people that are going towards entropy, and that is literally their choice. And it's what they're allowed to do. If I gave you a paintbrush or a pencil with an eraser, like, you're allowed to do what you want. That I consider that's freedom. It's freedom in this world, that everybody gets to choose where they're going. But also at a certain point, if you're moving towards entropy, there is not enough energy to make it possible for you to reverse your journey. This is very big. And I'm not trying to say some people are irredeemable. It's like saying, if you have 100 units of gas and you have already driven 57 units of gas out of your direction of where you're supposed to go, you don't have enough gas in your car to be able to get back on your path and get to where you need to go. Like, some people or beings are so far awry, because a lot of these beings are like demonic. They're not even embodied. They're so far awry from their central core timeline. They're so far away from what they ever should have been, that all that can happen to them now is that they go into a state of entropy. And again, this entropy thing, it's not about punishment. It's not about saying like, now you get to suffer eternally in hell. Like, no, it's not. That's not what this is about. This is about putting energy where it is actually supposed to be. Hold on a second. This is very funny. Patricia says, I have a cosmic toilet brush for those turds. And I think that's just wonderfully funny. Joelle says, yeah, it's like the love tone, neutrality, and acceptance. You absolutely understand, Joelle. You understand. We become a perpetual motion machine, making that love tone. And we just keep on going and going and going, because we have achieved being. We are being. We are being. We are not non-being. And all this stuff that I'm talking about, if you think about it in abstract terms, like what we're talking about, mortal beings. We live for a short amount of time and then we die. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be being, not being and then dying, being and then dying, being and then dying. That is like, it's like signal, no signal. Like, hey, how you doing? No signal. I'm calling home, no signal. Like, we can be connected and then not connected, connected and then not connected. That's not what we're supposed to be experiencing. Oh yeah, we'll get into non-duality. Okay, wait. Let me roll back. Wait a second. Pedro says, okay, in your video, you talk about the DMT from the pineal gland being secreted when consciousness enters birth, exactly, and leaves death. Does leaving include ascension? Yes. Really great question. The moment of ascension is like doing death the right way. It's basically kindling the entire body without a crematorium and instantaneously changing state from a solid, like I drew that little diagram, directly to a beam, jumping over any of the intervening levels of having to go through liquefaction and decomposition and all of those intervening changes of state. That is what ascension is. And in that moment, what happens is there's a complete biochemical, I guess is the word, a complete biochemical change and rearrangement of the body. And first of all, our planet is undergoing this right now. And we as individuals, we will all undergo this right now too. So what we're learning about here, this is like flight school for before we take our flight. We're like going to be fledglings. We're going to be like, time to jump out of the nest. We're about to go somewhere. And we go somewhere like with our minds. So yes, we're about to have this experience. And again, you know, the experience, it's not like, oh, we all float upward wearing white robes. And it's also not like we all die horribly in their rivers of blood. And a lot of it is very personal, just like a dream can be very personal. But then there are some aspects of it that are you know, universal. Sorry that I keep on getting these messages that are hopping up on my screen. Salu says, I feel as though the total awareness is beyond love, beyond any such feeling, non-dualistic. So the totality awareness, like this state of being, it's love, it's a perpetual motion machine, it's eternal, it's everythingness. And the challenge is when I use words to describe this, the rational mind wants to say, well, if it's everythingness, then it's even things that aren't supposed to be in existence. But so then I have to say, It's everything that's supposed to be in existence, and things that are not supposed to be in existence exist in a state of non-being. That there's existence and being, and then there's non-existence and non-being. And it's almost like turning the light switch on and off. Like if you were ever a kid and you did that to make your room a disco, on, off, on, off, on, off. That is what it is like. Oh, and Joelle has a nice response. She says, "Salut, it depends on how you define love. I'm talking about love as a tone." Yeah, I think that's a good answer. So this is, Aurora, when these beings go into entropy, do they go into a black hole? And if so, do they transform at all at any point? Once they go into a state of entropy, there is no further transformation. They get frozen. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to make those pings stop on my silly old thing. Just stop pinging me. They go into a state of frozenness. When you are frozen, you are not transforming anymore. So I don't know if you're asking from the direction of this, but the sense of like, maybe they can just be redeemed or helped or fixed or brushed up and shined up and polished with some silver polish and get the tarnish off of them, and then they'll be okay. The beings that need to go into entropy are so profoundly flawed that there's no way to just rub off the tarnish with a little bit of polish. That's not what it is. That they, yes, at least is they're frozen for eternity. You absolutely understand. That is what is supposed to happen to them. And that is my understanding of really divine love being practiced in the setup or like the management or the structuring of reality. That it's not like, oh, we want you to get your head cut off, or we want you to be poked with sharp things for eternity. That is not what is supposed to happen to them. They're supposed to be frozen in a state of non-being. And yet, Patricia says mercy, so to speak. It is very merciful. It is merciful. It's not a bad thing. And when they are in that frozen state, it's not like they are separated from unity consciousness. They're still part of that central convergence point, but they are part of it from a state of non-being. So again, words can be very slippery, but the singularity, the everythingness contains everything that's supposed to be, and also stuff that is not supposed to be. But the stuff that is not supposed to be is in a state of non-being. It's busy sitting there being like, I'm not here, I'm not here, I'm not here. And then there's all of us, all the things that are supposed to be there. And we are there actually doing stuff. Yeah, and Patricia says, it is merciful considering the suffering they have caused. That's exactly it. Like, I want to tell everyone who's been a victim and who has experienced suffering here, like, your feelings are appropriate. If you want to get justice or vindication or vengeance or whatever, I actually allow that, allow those feelings is what I'm trying to say. I'm not one of these Christians that's like, oh, like, you got to practice forgiveness. First of all, I have to say that the Christian church is very distorted in the way that it wants forgiveness to be practiced. And also the very priest rapists that have been raping all of these different, their congregation, that they then say, oh, but we teach you to practice forgiveness, so you have to forgive. It's like, no. I kind of wish that that some of these victims would just completely, pardon my French, go ape shit on their attackers. And because there's a real justice in that. It's like, if you are, an animal that's been hit and abused all the time, by your owner, and then all of a sudden one day you manage to like slip out of your restraint and you can actually attack your attacker, I would say do it. Go, because it's cosmic law, actually. What you send out comes back to you instantaneously and amplified. So if you've been on the receiving end of all this abuse and shit, then you get free, you absolutely are entitled to be allowed to turn it around and attack your attacker and kind of get like people who are all focused on forgiveness. I want to tell them, like, you don't even know how to do victimhood, right? Even though I don't like to use the word victim, but like, you don't even know how to victim. Like, how you become badass. And that literally is how you reclaim those aspects of soul that have been taken from you. Like, you become a badass and you take them back. So no, you don't have to you don't have to hug a demon. You don't have to apologize for them. You don't have to be like, oh, I love you so much, demonic rapist. Like, no, none of that. And you're feelings of anger and disgust and even hatred, or whatever words we would use to describe it. Those are all appropriate feelings. So I don't want anyone to feel like, because that's another victim blaming, shaming thing. Like, something bad happens to you and then you hate your attacker and you hate yourself for hating your attacker because you think you're not Christian enough. Like, no, all of that gets thrown out the window. And if it would make you feel better to like mutilate your attacker and do all these things, then maybe you should have an opportunity to do that. But it's more what I'm talking about is in a sense of the larger composer conductor creating real fairness in the solution to, Ron is saying it, karma squared. That's it. The concept of karma has been heavily twisted and distorted by the Hindu religion in order to justify the caste system. But if we looked at the pure idea of karma, what you send out comes back to you instantaneously and amplified. That is how it should be applied. So yes. Joelle says, yes, it is important to witness and feel feelings and not resist them. That's exactly it. Because if something is done to you, horrible, then your feelings are justified. Like your feelings are part of the natural course of things. So Lou says, Joelle, yeah, love as a tone is still within relativity to my understanding. Total awareness is it relative? Thus total awareness, unless if I really misunderstood something. Ron is saying, no, Stockholm syndrome. So Lou says, not relative. So let me reread that. If total awareness is not relative. So I don't know what the word is not. I'm trying to understand how you're using the word relativity because it is not in terms of like a quantum definition of it. So I'm not exactly sure how to understand that. Let me move on to a few other things over here. My notes of different things of. Okay, hold on. Drinking water. Okay. Different uses for the flying rainbow lasagna, how to actually do it, how to paint stuff. What can we do with the paintbrush? We can do profound healing, and that healing you can do with versions of yourself across time and with others. Like if there's another person out there, like if you have some kind of infectious disease, and you're like, I don't know, my body doesn't know the antibody or how to heal this infectious disease, but that guy over there does. You can get the idea of how to create the antibody from that guy over there. Or whatever level of healing you need to know how to do, you can get the idea like, oh, that guy sings it like this. I'm going to learn how to sing it and sing it myself. I already got through bringing together formerly divergent realms or separate places to get something. This is a good one. Pinging, sorry. To get something from some place that is distant in either time or space. So let's talk about this. At a certain point, I felt in my DNA like I needed molecules of gold. I'm not a very rich person. I don't have gold sitting around. I don't have a lot of money to go out and buy gold. And so I said, I'm going to just take it. I'm going to flying rainbow lasagna with whatever molecules of gold I need and take them into my corporeal body in order to do whatever molecular structuring was needed. So let's say that there's a nutrient or something like, a piece of gold or something like that that you need for your anatomical structuring and development. And let's say it's not available to you through mundane means. You can flying rainbow lasagna with that nutrient in order to get everything you need to do this transformation. Because we are undergoing this metamorphosis right now. That is a metamorphosis from, like a carbon structure that's more like coal, like non-coherent, not perfectly crystalline structure, to something that is more analogous to a diamond. And we need to metabolize, like we need to have enough food, but it's not just regular, it's not going to work to just have like eat potatoes and bread. Like you're going to need nutrients and vitamins. And there might be something that you need for your body building that you don't have available to you. So in my case, it was, little pieces of gold, or it could be whatever, a molecule or a vitamin or some rare earth mineral or something that you need. You don't have to spend a lot of money to go and get it. What you can do is flying rainbow lasagna with it. And that means if it is over here where my fingertips are and you are over here where the heel of my hand is, you draw it to you by folding and bending the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. So what I have done is folded that fabric of space, time, and consciousness. That there are little molecules that fold into my body so that I can have all of everything that I need to do this transformation. And you can ask this question now, Aurora, like, why don't you just fold a whole bunch of gold molecules in your direction and put together some kind of a gold nugget and then take it down to a pawn shop and then sell it for, $100 or so? And my answer is because that would be, again, doing something that is super natural, like that is so far beyond the mundane in order to achieve what is a relatively mundane objective of getting money. Like there's easier ways to earn some money than make a magical gold nugget and then sell it at the pawn shop for, a small amount of money. And I mean, like that's, I'm trying to like think about how I can even draw this, but like here's how I would draw this out. It's like taking, here, let's just erase a little bit. Okay. Let's say, okay, I want to make this gold nugget right over here, right? And so I'm going to take here all of these dots, all of these gold molecules from all of these different places. And let's say I'm going to make like 10,000 lasagnas, 10,000, I can't even draw that many of them, but imagine 10,000 of them that are all connecting them like this, right? They're all connecting them, we have, puckered the fabric of space, time, and consciousness like 10 million trillion times in order to achieve this one little gold nugget. Like I'm trying to say, are you starting to understand like how that is, how that looks to the overall musical score of the cosmos? It's not very pretty music because mostly it is motivated by either, we could say greed or mere practicality, as opposed to artistry. This is all about artistry, making the right notes, making the right colors fitting together so that everything looks and sounds beautiful. So yeah, it would be a monstrosity to be like, let's just get all of these gold molecules and then sell them at pawn shops. Like you'd have all these magical nuggets, like impossible objects. That's what I'm trying to say. We can't be, I recommend rather that we not be motivated by mere practicality or greed in doing magic, but to be motivated instead by artistry and divinity. Okay, so molecules like atoms, electrons, blah, blah, we can get stuff from other stuff that we need. How about new ideas? Let's say you're stuck in a box. I'm stuck in a box. I have no idea how to get out of the box. Let's say that guy over there who lived 500 years ago or will live in 500 years knows how to get out of the box. You can flying rainbow lasagna with that guy that has information that you need to know about. Now let's go further. In this diagram, I always show that central core timeline, and I label that rather as the path of least likelihood. It's also the path of inevitability. It's inevitable. If you go through every single possible cycle and every single possible iteration, you will inevitably find yourself on that central core timeline. And that timeline is where you become an ascended master. So the big takeaway from that is each one of us has as inevitability the end result of our refinement process, ourselves as an ascended master. You can flying rainbow lasagna with that version of yourself that is an ascended master and get any kind of information, love, inspiration that you need for your journey right now. So wherever you are in your personal development, your personal metamorphosis and trajectory right now, you might need to learn about something, whatever, a body process, a biological process, the existence of a person, a new idea, a new concept, whatever it is, and you might not know about it. And it might be that all the people that are surrounding you, and no book, the people that you know, the books that you read, and everything else that you have access to does not contain that idea. You can flying rainbow lasagna with this present day version of yourself and that future version of yourself. And this is very, very different than acquiescing your power to any kind of externalized power, structure, or deity. This is very different than saying like, space Jesus, bearded sky God, someone else tell me what to do. It is not someone other than you. It is you in your divine perfected state that you now can fold time, space, and consciousness and have a real-time conversation with that future version of you in order to find out, yo, what should I do? Because that version of you actually knows and is absolutely motivated to help you in your present format to become that version. That's a big one. Like if you're, the ascended master in the future, you pretty much have to reach, turn around, reach over your shoulder and send energy and inspiration and goodness and guidance to who you were in the past so that you will become the person who you are, at the divine perfected sense of self. So yeah, I don't consider myself to be a perfected ascended master right now. And I do turn around over my shoulder and I look back on myself, previous versions of myself in time, and I send energy and inspiration just from this version of Aurora to, like struggling as an artist and who I was struggling with my health, many years ago. And I send energy and information back and I say, first of all, the idea that you can survive, life can get better, you can transcend this, and then what I actually did in order to do that. So that's a very big one. That's the type of guidance that I advocate for people to get, like tuning into your own self in a divine perfected state in the future to be able to guide yourself in the present moment. Okay, wait. Back to questions here. Elizabeth says, how about FRLing to a loved individual who has run out of gas in this timeline and now finds himself on the membrane of death waiting room? If someone has, really good question. Thank you for your really good question. If someone has actually died, they've already hit the membrane of death, the most merciful thing that any one of us can do is to wish for them to just go into a state of entropy. Don't take a long time about it, because there is not a pathway from the membrane of death to the point of ascension. There is not a direct road that goes there. What you have to do is get off the membrane of death by getting into a body and getting alive again, and then circulating through the time field from the correct trajectory. So this is just like, if you've ever gone into a parking lot, you're driving your car and you're trying to get into one of those, little spots that they've got, the lines are painted. And if you don't begin with your turn of the angle of your car in just the right way, sometimes it's just like, it's almost impossible to actually get your car to go in there. Sometimes it's easier, instead of making like 10 million little turns or whatever, just pull out, and then try it again from the right trajectory. That is what it is like. If you've hit the membrane of death, you have not completed the equation correctly. And there's not a way for you to go from that, like bugs smashed on the windshield of time position to then somehow jumping off of there and immediately going to where the ascension timeline is. It is necessary to kind of back out of the parking space, realign your starting position, and then start from the beginning in the way that you intend to. So if you have a loved one here, because I know that was part of the question. Yeah, there you go. If you have a loved one who has already hit the membrane of death, then the part of their awareness that is on the membrane of death, like, it should be frozen. It should go into entropy. That's why if you want to think well of a loved one who is no longer alive on your timeline, think of them as being alive on another timeline. Like, I've drawn these overlapping timelines before. I can do this properly. Kind of got my little princess. She's totally nuzzled in. Sorry for the pinging, everyone. If we have two overlapping timelines here. Timeline one, sorry, two overlapping time vortices. That's really, really messy. Got one like that, and then we've got one like this. And this place where I'm highlighting in red, that is where the two lives overlap. So when someone dies from your perspective, there is no longer any timelines that overlap in this area, that you no longer share any areas of the timelines, but that person still exists in this area over here. Here, move my thing. That person still exists and is alive in this area where I'm highlighting in black. So the kindest thing that you can do, if there's someone that you know and love who has died from your perspective, is not to imagine them as being alive on the membrane of death, which would be like imagining them in hell, but instead to imagine them being alive on another timeline. So my personal example of this is about like a year and a half, more than a year and a half ago, almost 2 years at this point. Before I had my dog overlord, I had a lovely cat overlord, and our timelines diverged. So what happened from her perspective, I died. I had like whatever, a brain aneurysm or a car accident or something. I died. And other friends of mine adopted her and ended up, taking care of her. And she lived for many more years, but she had to live with a dog, which was hard. And then from my perspective, she died. From my perspective, she got, bit by another cat and she succumbed to her injuries, and then she no longer was alive on my timeline. But I don't think of her, sitting on a cloud strumming a harp as being alive in that way. I think of her as still being alive, but on a distant timeline. That does not include me being alive, which is why I can't be there actually hugging her. So, because I kind of could tell, like, well, if I wasn't there to take care of my cat, I do have lovely friends who are all animal lovers, so I knew that she would be taken care of. So that was kind of how but that's how you understand these things. How about using human examples? So I have several friends from back in Woodstock who were not old. They were all in their 30s and 40s, and they died of cancer. So from my perspective, they died. They're not on this timeline anymore. But from their perspective, they are still alive, and I died. To their perspective, I didn't move to California. I died. And that's why we are no longer, able to talk or communicate together. So, when I think fondly of my friends who aren't alive from my perspective anymore, I don't think of them in a heavenly realm or like, strumming a harp or something like that. But I do think of them as being on their best version of timeline that they can be on, experiencing good things that were joyful and pleasant to them. And just like, so I'm here, I got to move to California where it's nice and sunny. I don't have snow anymore, and I get to grow my cannabis garden, and I, have a wonderful little dog. So to them, they might think of me as being in heaven in my art studio, with my cannabis and my little dog. And that's like, it's a good analogy. But clearly, I don't know if the words are giving the impression like it does a disservice to someone that you love to imagine them as still being alive as themselves after death. Because when you really die, you're supposed to go abstract. You're supposed to be able to be like anything you want to be. You don't have to still be yourself, even if you're a nice cat or a nice person. Okay, I'm going to go to more, okay. Joelle says, yes, Patricia, cosmic love, which is beingness, letting the light shine like a star. Oh, I like how you say that. SJ, good to see you, my dear. She has a question. She said, is it possible to FRL unconsciously? Really good question. My answer to that is not unconsciously, but supra-consciously. So in our world, we have the consciousness, daily waking awareness, what is considered to be the or the subconscious. That's like when you have a Freudian slip, when you say to someone like, oh, I really hate your new hair. Oops, I love your new hair. Like you were unconscious in the way that you let your true feelings about their hair come out. But then there is the supra-conscious, higher than regular conscious. And the supra-conscious I define as sometimes when you're a musician and you're in the zone and you are just like coming up with new music, new melodies, whatever, like it's beyond your regular level of consciousness, but it's not your subconscious. It's your supraconscious, your higher conscious. Sometimes it's like genius level intelligence that bypasses our regular daily waking intellect. So I would say, yes, it is possible to do the flying rainbow lasagna on a level that I would define as the supra-conscious level, that like you might not be consciously aware of it. Your mundane daily waking awareness might be thinking about like, I have to buy toilet paper. It's time for me to do the dishes. I have to finish this thing for work. Like that's usually what my daily waking mind is about. But then usually what I do is I have a specific time during the day when I'm like, now I turn off my daily waking mind and I go into my supra consciousness and I do the flying rainbow lasagna. So yeah, even like the story of Nicole's personal experience, driving on the highway and then seeing that she was going to be in the car accident. And then she just spontaneously lasagnaed. I would say she used her supra consciousness, which is what a lot of people do when they're faced with that moment of life and death. They get out of their mundane center or mundane focus and go into a higher dimensional, higher self focus. So yes, and I do, when I do the flying rainbow lasagna, I'm doing it from the position or the perspective of my non-ego self. So this is also a big takeaway because people would ask me questions about like, why don't you just make a nugget of gold for yourself? Why don't you just make a gold toilet seat for yourself? The real answer is my motivations change and my value system or what I prioritize changes when I get into that perspective of being in the super consciousness and doing the flying rainbow lasagna. Because at that point, it's not just about what is good and convenient for me. It is also about what is good and convenient for all of the microbes, all of the trees, all of the plants, all of the animals, the entire planet, the entire time field. So it's not just like, oh, I want to play this note. I'm going to play it because it's like, oh, well, how is that note going to affect the rest of the band? So then I have to refine my desires to not just be what's good for me, but also to be what's good for the entire band. So that's my short answer for why I don't live in a giant gold-plated mansion and drive some kind of crazy gold-plated car. Just drive a regular car, but it's a good car. I get around town, but you understand what I'm talking about. So yes, and it is also possible to do the flying rainbow lasagna while performing mundane tasks. Like I've had this experience of being in a grocery store and having a very perceptive person walk up to me and say, you are dancing like your DNA through all the DNA of the people in the store. And I was like, thank you so much for seeing that. Like, yes, I'm doing that. And I'm also buying some toilet paper at the same time. So you have these very hilarious like bifurcations where I'm doing very mundane, boring stuff, but then at the same time, I'm doing very magical, supra-conscious stuff. So it's just kind of funny. And just on a brief aside, we are moving into the levels of, magical reality and supra-consciousness all the time. So at a certain point, we won't be having that, funny dividing between like, oh yeah, doing these regular boring activities and then doing these magical, super magical, wonderful things. Everything will be super magical, wonderful things, but it's just like, we're not quite at that point yet. Salu says, the human mind just loves concepts. Interesting. Pedro says, you would need to know where a good sized chunk of gold is to FRL it into your hand, maybe the inside of a gold ingot or some bank vault. But I see how all this is not worth it. You get it, man. Like, what if we left behind the outside shell of the ingot and we just took the gold from the inside, right? And then we had all these hollow ingots. Like, what we're talking about is doing magic. And it's, magic the way that it would be presented in like a science fiction show or something like that. But it's real magic. And with magic comes responsibilities. And you have to say, I know that what I'm doing is affecting reality. What am I allowed to do? How do I want to affect reality, knowing this will have an impact? Because let's say you steal from a bunch of ingots and then one country is like, you've stolen all, not me, but what if they're like, the Russians stole our gold. It's all fake ingots. Let's have a war. And it's like, oh man, I just wanted to pay my bills by stealing someone else's gold out of their safe deposit box. I didn't want to start a whole war. So that's why you have to like be cautious about what you're doing with your magic. Joel says, if you could make gold out of thin air, it might be fun though. It's just a matter of your intention and using it in the right way. There's not a way to make something out of thin air. It's like everything has ingredients. So cake, needs flour and sugar and eggs. Like whatever you want to make, you got to make your stuff out of something. But there are freely available raw ingredients in various different places. You should have to know like where to get it from. So when we had bad forest fires here last December, there were tons of carbon floating around in the atmosphere. And the carbon it's like smoke. It was very bad to breathe in. So we need to clean out that smoke. I'm like, let's send this carbon someplace where it can actually be utilized to make something. No one's going to miss it, that it's not in our atmosphere. That's the whole point. That I'm very ethical when I do my flying rainbow lasagna. If I move molecules from one place to another place, are those molecules going to be missed? And is it going to cause a negative blowback if I move those molecules and then someone or something was relying upon them? So look for unassigned molecules that you can play around with, like smoke from a forest fire. What a good question. Pedro says, doesn't total awareness include love? Yes, absolutely. I would say total awareness includes love. Love being like the tone, the motion that generates like movement through time. Love is part of like imagine like a wind in your sails that is moving the boat forward. Love is that wind that is literally moving us through time. Salu says, Patricia, we are not made of love as a frequency. We are made of the one energy. Unconditional love is an attribute of the total awareness. Sometimes I think words just make it a challenge for us to connect, because I see this all as pictures and just describing it as words is a challenge. So I'm understanding, I think, where this conversation is going. And Patricia's saying, LOL, which is love. Salu says, it's not love. It's just the same energy, love energy. Okay, like I respect the conversation that's going on there, and I think I see the different perspectives that are happening. Pedro says, I thought the total awareness is like a rainbow and love is the green in the rainbow. Woo, good. Yes. Love is like the green in the rainbow. Yes. And orange is like a degradation or distortion of that green of the love. But the love doesn't stop being, it's like if I put eggs in the cake, The cake still has eggs in it, even though the eggs are interacting with other ingredients. The cake still has eggs. So love is love. It is what it is. It is that force or that tone or that it's an abstraction, and that abstraction also exists as part of a larger recipe of awareness. That love is an essential, crucial ingredient in that recipe of awareness. But it's not the only ingredient that's in there. That's a very good distinction to make. So Lucy says, Pedro, yeah, that sounds more accurate. Patricia says, we come into existence on a bridge of love. We eat love. We are love. Love is the one and same beyond words and discourse and comparison. That's totally accurate. And I would say love is even analogous to time. Love is analogous to this time field, or, we could almost switch the two words around, not time in the way that is commodified in the capitalistic realm, but time in the sense of an abstraction. That's what we're experiencing here in this abstraction known as time. So Lou says the one energy, source energy, is beyond words, and therefore it is not love. I don't know how to speak to that, because I would say the source energy that's at the singularity is definitely synonymous with love. It's like playing the right music. It's doing all the right things. It's playing the right notes. But perhaps in translating these concepts into words, that it becomes difficult to, speak about this effectively, depending upon how we're defining the word love. Ben just agrees, love is the best, and smiley face. Patricia says, hey, we use what we have to communicate. That's all I love to love. Beautiful. Sarah Jane says, super conscious is new terminology for me. Thank you. You're very welcome. And Joelle says, it's all definitions. That's what it is. We're just struggling with our definitions of what is the definition of love. Joelle says, love to me is the same as a state of beingness and awareness. It's not the same as our mammalian ooey gooey feelings of affection. Thank you. The mammalian ooey gooey feelings of affection, that's like the orange level. And there's nothing wrong. Those orange level feelings are important. Those are the feelings that can motivate us to do a lot of things. But that's not, once you're out of the body, you don't have a mammalian sense of ooey gooey love. And that also, as we get to those levels of coherence and ascension, our feelings of love and our expression of love become different than the desire to, hug and kiss and squash something. Love becomes more a sense of like care for and respect, because a lot of the hugging and squishing and stuff, a lot of that is about personal pleasure. Like I love to hug and squish and pet my little dog over here because she's super awesome and, very, it feels good to me. When we get to higher levels of personal development, love is not just about like, oh, it feels good to me. It is also about respecting the person that you are loving. So, I only want to hug and kiss my dog in ways that feel good to her. And seriously, like when I'm annoying her, because sometimes I kiss her too much, she kind of just like give me this look or whatever. I'm just like, oh, okay, see you later. Like it's too much ooey gooey. She's like, I need more divine love and less ooey gooey love, please, just a little bit. So Luz is agreeing. She says, yeah, as Pedro said, unconditional love, the green tone, but it's not the be all and end of creation and awareness. That's my point. I understand what you're saying. Okay, cool. All right, I understand what you guys are saying. Ben says, love and the all are linked. Creation exists for love to be made manifest. Yes, I think that this time field, this experience of being in time, that part of it, like as a basic definition, has love as like the basic ingredient here. And that's big. Just like, even if you weren't a wonderful mother or a wonderful parent, just the idea of having a baby and giving birth to it is a physical expression of love, because you have given selflessly, something of yourself to another being so it can have life. So being able to be here and have life, I think is like part of the definition of being loved. Pedro says, I know I'm showing my geek side, that's okay. But as they said in Spider-Man, with great powers come greater responsibility. Use your FRL wisely. Bam, there's a lot of wisdom in the modern superhero stories. So yes, that's exactly what it is. That's when I'm talking about having this cosmic paintbrush, using the flying rainbow lasagna. Yes, it is all about using it wisely. And I have so many funny stories about misusing my Merkaba and having funny things happen that shouldn't have happened when I first started out. But, like I said, you're an artist in your studio and you're allowed to make ugly paintings or make things that are mistakes in your drawing, but then you got to erase them. You got to clean stuff up. if I make a painting that has like a big fat drip and I don't take care of that drip, then it's like, that's my fault that I didn't take care of the drip. It might've been an accident that it happened in the first place, but then I was supposed to be responsible enough to actually clean it up. So that's how I look at these things. We're given the opportunity to play and to explore and experiment, and also clean up your drips. Don't just, yeah, use your FRL wisely also. And blowback is almost instantaneous. Like when you do something wrong, it's like, okay, you can tell right away, like that was not the right thing to do. And then all the time when I'm doing my flying rainbow lasagna, I'm dancing, 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 dancing. And then I do this thing where I bring my hands together. And as I'm bringing my hands together, I am intending an erasure of any errant things, unintended mistakes. Because, when I'm doing my flying rainbow lasagna, sometimes I do go into my ego. Sometimes I do think, oh, I gotta buy toilet paper, or my mind wanders, or I think about something stupid. And I don't want that stupidity to be magnified out into this big giant thing that grows into the flying rainbow lasagna. So before I, lock everything in, I do erasing. And I say, oh, we're now erasing all the things that are unintentional, we're erasing all the drips from the painting, all the ugliness, all the things that I didn't want to have happen, all the cruelly ironic fulfillment of wishes. Like, when you make a wish, you're like, I wish for blah, blah, blah. You're not wishing for its cruel, ironic misfulfillment. You're wishing for it to be fulfilled appropriately. Ben says, but in terms of definitions and concepts are tricky. It is not easy to transmit in the chat box. Yes, would be happy to continue the convo on a FRL Facebook page. Yes, and I do have a Facebook page that is called Students of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, just for that particular type of conversation. Cece says, Kesh said he could create gold, but wouldn't do it as it would harm the economy. Yes, I understand what you're talking about. I just got to say yellow caution flags on that Kesha guy, because I think that he's like a super fraudster. And I think that his idea of keeping plasma in a gas form in a liquid is totally nonsensical to me. I mean, my understanding of what a plasma is. So I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about when he talks about GANs, but a lot of his he's been, I think, accused of fraud, that he's saying that he's doing things that he's not actually doing with his mechanical devices. So just yellow caution flags on that guy. But I understand what you're talking about. It would change the economy. It would change the valuation of gold if you suddenly brought 10 tons more gold onto the planet or something like that. Joelle says, thanks everyone, and Aurora for sharing your different perspectives. It is important, like that's the one big multidimensional tool. I agree. Really good comment. Thank you. Patricia says, Cheeky is looking thick and healthy, perhaps a little bit too much. She went over, she's laughing at us. She went over our friend's house because our friend has this very picky eater dog, and our friend made 2 bowls of food for the other dog, and Cheeky vacuumed them both up. And I'm like, okay, like I think Cheeky needs to like get lots of extra exercise, and we need to be on a little bit of a diet. Yeah. I'm agreeing with all of you guys on the necessity of varying opinions, respecting other people's opinions, and having good conversations with it. And I really do think it's hard to just have conversations in the chat, but I also think that it's like some of these concepts, words, just flatten them out, and it can be easier almost to like draw something like a picture. That's why I do so much pictures and diagrams, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense otherwise. So, okay, let me, did I get through everything? New DNA molecules, new ideas, molecules and atoms. Yes, bonding across time. I have my whole, one more thing. I'm so happy I have my notes over here. Well, you can fly rainbow lasagna with yourself and a concept. And that means you're taking your personality characteristics and putting it into whatever that concept is. So here's an example. You could fly rainbow lasagna with yourself, your sense of self, with a thing like a government or a company or a university. And this is especially effective if any of those things that I mentioned are pesky or troublesome, like the government. That federal government is so pesky and troublesome. I can flying rainbow lasagna with the federal government. And that would be like putting some sense into it. That would be like imbuing your melody of things that make sense and are good into the crazy freaking federal government, or into, like I said, a corporation, or into the workings of a university. And again, that's not like imposing your will on someone or something else. It is like saying, that's my music. I'm going to play my music. you're going to hear my music and it's going to affect you and it's going to change and transform you. So I know someone who from this class, I just don't remember her name, I'm so sorry, who did this with the company called Alcoa, that is an aluminum manufacturing company. And this is also why I truly encourage everyone in their own expertise and their own divine guidance, because I didn't know anything about this company. And yet it was a major polluter in her area. So she decided to flying rainbow lasagna with Alcoa, and then it transformed some of their business practices. And these are the things that we need to be doing. So I'm just trying to give different ideas. Like if I give that idea to you, then you're like, wait, I can use it in that way. Wow, then it unlocks so many different things. So let's say your local public school board is giving you troubles, or there's something you disagree with there. You can flying rainbow lasagna with the school board. It's like giving them, exposing them to your ideas, to your music, to your approach to reality, which is probably more sane and rational and well-formed than their rational reality. Patricia's making a comment and a joke. She says, can we just send them to entropy, LOL? Yes, we could just send the federal government to entropy. I think that might be easier and nicer. This is great. Ron says FRL with traffic or the lack thereof. I think that would be interesting. Like if you decided I am going to FRL with the concept of traffic, especially here, like in Southern California, do an experiment and see what would happen if the traffic would suddenly like magically rearrange itself so that now everybody got where they needed to go at the right time. Yeah, so that's the idea. Like it's paintbrush for reality that each one of us as individuals can use to influence reality. And I want everyone to have their own paintbrush, because everyone might know about things. I don't know about everything, is what I'm trying to say. Not only do I not wish to carry that burden completely as a solo mission, and everybody has their own expertise. You know what's going on in your neighborhood. You know about things that are unfair or that need healing in your world. And so I would encourage everyone to take their particular flying rainbow lasagna paintbrush and begin to paint their own neighborhood looking much better. I have to end the video soon because I have to take someone out for some WALK. Yes, we could jump. Patricia says, I would like to jump over traffic. Maybe that's what we can do. Jump up and over traffic, or maybe you could just bend the fabric of time, space, and consciousness so that your destination is now at your origin. You don't even have to drive any place. Pedro says, Aurora, have you thought about drawing a self-portrait, or have you already done that? I have not. Well, I mean, I've drawn like that painting over there that is a painting of flying rainbow lasagna and the earth. Like in an abstract sense, they're all self-portraits, but I have not really done like a traditional, portrait with my face features and everything like that. It's a good challenge. I should see if I feel like doing that sometime. Brandon says, oh, Brandon, good to see you. Aurora, thanks for sharing your editing techniques. Editing techniques, thank you. I'm feeling them from a new perspective today. Brandon, thank you for giving me that vocabulary word. Editing techniques. We are talking about editing reality, editing genes, editing reality, editing the events of reality. That is perfect. Patricia says it's her painting with your mermaid hair. Yeah, I haven't, all of these, like I joke about what art is. I really think that when you're an artist, everything you're making is a self-portrait. Everything is really your own internal world externalized. And even if that, like that guy who just put a giant shark in a tank of formaldehyde, like that's somehow his inner world that he's externalizing. So yeah, all of these perfect patterns and the rainbow colors, like that's very much, a self-portrait of what I look like when I'm not in a human form, but I have not taken the time to do a formal painting, of what I look like with 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth. So that might be a fun project to do sometime. Pedro says you can include your overlords in the painting. I would absolutely include Cheeky in the painting. I know I'd have to take a picture because she doesn't sit still that much to be able to get a portrait of what her face looks like. Yeah, editing techniques, really, really good. So because I'm going to end the video for right now, but still keep going with the chat and say thank you to everyone who's been with me on this journey. And stay tuned. Next week is going to be lesson 18, all about galactic history and the origins of the demons that run in the human genetic code and why we're in this position of flying rainbow lasagnaing. So that should be a nice juicy experience. And thank you to everyone thank you to the wonderful participants in this class and all of your good chats. And yeah, just thank you, and I appreciate you very much. Okay.